Welcome back to episode 4 of Let's Talk. Today's episode entitled Let's Talk About Standing Up. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much to all of the amazing feedback I'm receiving regarding this podcast, from people telling me that they feel seen and heard from the topics that we've been discussing, to women saying, wow, I really appreciate your insight on this, or some of the guests that I've had their insight on this as well, including answering questions. And so thank you to my sister and to Bella McIntyre so far for being guests. I have some pretty great guests lined up as far as personal friends of mine. And then right now I am planning on having Jill Savage, as obviously all of you guys know, because it's literally the Jill Savage, on the podcast soon as well. So definitely stay tuned for the next few episodes as I have close friends of mine and then Jill coming up. As you can tell, a little bit of a better camera quality. I got myself a little mic here. Sorry if that was ruined the sound there for a second. That was probably dumb for me to pick it up like that. Anyways, let's move on. My amazing husband, for an early Christmas present, got me a little bit of better equipment. He told me that he believed in me and believed in this podcast. And so I greatly appreciate him. So just wanted to give him a little bit of a shout out at the beginning of this as well. So let's get started. Again, like I said, the topic of today, let's talk about standing up. I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of my theater career. Back when it all started, it started when I was 14 years old. Technically about 14, yeah. I had auditioned for actually the best Christmas pageant ever at the Des Moines Playhouse, didn't get in, which was a super sad moment for me. And then they invited me back to perform in a showcase of talented youngsters that they had seen that year and that they wanted to kind of highlight. And so they invited me back. I performed in that, just some skits and everything. So I kind of got to meet some people. But my first official show was at the Des Moines Playhouse as Violet Beauregard in Willy Wonka. And from there, I went on to perform in Hairspray, Legally Blonde, School of Rock, Freaky Friday, A Christmas Carol, just to name a few. That kind of sound like a little bit of a humble brag, just to name a few, all of the shows I've been in. Okay. Anyways, and it was my life. I devoted a lot of time to that. When you're in a show like that, especially like Willy Wonka, we did almost 30 shows and I was only 14 years old. So how that schedule would work, especially because it was their holiday show, is you would perform Thursday night, Friday night, and then 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. And then Willy Wonka did school matinees that would perform twice on Monday, twice on Tuesday, but that was only once. So there was 1 week where I performed twice on Monday, twice on Tuesday, once on Thursday, once on Friday, twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday. I mean, I know it's community theater, it's local. Like, I'm not going to get too big of a head, but it was a big deal here for a lot of people. And, it's a very rigorous schedule, especially like rehearsing and everything like that. And so it was something that I put a lot of my time in, and it felt like that was what God put me on this earth to do, was to perform, was to sing and to act and to dance and to perform. Well, to dance, not the best dancer. A lot of people will tell you that, but to sing and to act and to semi dance, a little bit of dance. So, it felt like that is what God put me on this earth to do. I was very blessed with the people that I met and the opportunities that I was given. But, as time went on, it definitely started to become more political. I remember when I first started, that never was really an issue, or at least it wasn't really talked about. We weren't going around asking people's, pronouns or anything. We were all just there to perform. We weren't sitting there talking about like, well, who are you going to vote for? And what is your stance on abortion? Like, it was just, you know what? I'm here to perform. You're here to perform. Maybe you have different views than I do. And that's okay, because the point of this is to make people happy and to share a story with people and to be on stage. And that was okay with me, because theater was a time in my life that I could share the love of Christ with others without being like, do you believe in our Lord Jesus Christ and Savior? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a way for me to be like, wow, people see a difference in me, and people seeing a difference from the way that some of my friends acted versus how I acted towards situations. But I was just there to perform and to make friends. And I made a lot of them. God gave me a lot of God put a lot of people in my life that really helped boost me. I was really, just a few years back, I was getting to a point where I was coming to audition, but I was coming to audition for shows because directors were actually reaching out to me, asking me, hey, can you come, are you going to come audition for the show? We would love to have you audition for the show. And that was a huge moment for me. And I would assistant direct, I would be a part of shows even when I wasn't acting in them. Like, it was my life. And it had its ups and downs for sure. You're going to put a group of people together to perform something of all different ages and backgrounds. It's like, yeah, there's going to be some drama, and there was drama there was drama that I've created. There's dramas that others people created. I'm not perfect, and there were times where I made huge mistakes, in my theater career at that time, and there were a lot of times that I messed up, but overall, you know, the point of me being in theater was to perform and to make people happy. And, I don't really know when it happened, but theater started. I mean, I guess there was one moment where a show that I was in, I remember I came out, it was a dress rehearsal. So I just finished changing back into my regular clothes. And this girl had asked everybody to sit in the audience because she had an announcement to make. And everybody's like, okay, like she was an ensemble member in the cast. And so we were all like, what's going on? What is happening? And she announced to all of us that she was like non-binary or transgender or one of those words. And that she appreciated this cast for helping her finalize and make this decision, and everybody's clapping around me. And I just kind of remember being like, oh, okay, because like, this is theater, guys. There are a lot of gay people in theater, and that's just something that I kind of just had to get used to, But again, we never discussed it. It wasn't like people were like, "Oh, Anna, can you affirm me in my gayness?" Like, that never happened. We were there laughing and playing theater games and being in shows, and it was that moment where I was like, "Okay, odd. All right." And then slowly but surely, like, more things kind of, once that had happened, then all of a sudden this domino effect of people being like, now I can come out and say all this stuff came. And so then people, started being like, I'm bisexual, I'm this. And then it all became a whole hoopla of things. And, I usually kept to myself during those conversations. I mean, pardon me, there were plenty of times where I was asked, and there were definitely plenty of times where I was a coward in my faith in that sense because I was so worried about losing the friendships I made or seeming hateful. I think that's a good way of putting it is, I wanted to show the love of Christ. Like, that was a big thing for me. I want to show the love of Christ, the love of Christ, the love of Christ. And to me, the definition of love was silence, not standing up for Jesus. It was kind of like, it honestly reminds me of Peter, where he loves Jesus, and he loves him in his heart, and that's great. But when people came up to him and were like, "Oh, well, don't you know this man?" And he's like, "Oh, never seen that man in my life." Like, that was kind of me. Like, people knew that I was a Christian, and people, my very close friends knew my actual beliefs. Like, we would have one-on-one conversations, but the general theater public knew nothing. I mean, there was one time in a show, sorry, excuse that noise if you can hear it, but there was one time in a show where I was sitting there. I was running the sound booth, and some girl came out and called me out about my dad. And that was the only time that had ever happened. Like, they don't know who Steve Dace is. They don't listen to that. Just like do our research because we want to know, what are they saying about us, or even better yet, what are the views that they're spewing or the hate that they're spewing, and they don't do that. And so when that girl was like, her dad is Steve Dace, and you guys don't understand, people are like, oh, it's whatever. And people would always equate those things with my dad and not with me. And so it kind of became to a point where I was just pushing my true beliefs down so that I would keep my friends and that they would like me and that I would get into the shows that I want. And so, minus maybe two or three people, nobody knew what I thought and nobody knew what I believed about anything. It was really just silent, like radio silence, to the point where sometimes they would even try to convince me out of my beliefs too. The Bible talks about being equally yoked. And a lot of times, that's not even just about marriage. That's just about the people that you spend time with. Because the more I spent time with people that didn't believe the same things I did in intimate settings like that, the more that they would try to convince me out of those beliefs. I wasn't doing any good to them. They were doing bad to me. And and so when that girl stood up and made that announcement, it really became clear to me that theater is starting to become something that it wasn't originally, which was grandstanding for your political beliefs. So soon after, a few years had passed, like a few years pass, and it's becoming kind of worse and worse, but I'm just trying to ignore it because I love it so much. And this is when Matt Walsh's What is a Woman comes out. My dad sends Steven, who was my boyfriend at the time, he sends me, right? He was my boyfriend, I think. Yes. He sends me the preview for the movie. And so we watch it. And, you know, not sugarcoating it at all, my 100% real talk, it absolutely changed my life because of the fact that a lot of this stuff that I just pushed to the side because I wanted to be friends with these people came to light in that documentary, and I truly saw the evil that was happening behind some of those things. And obviously I never ever believed that men could become women and women could become men, but it was something that I tolerated, and it was something that I put up with because I didn't want to lose friends, and I didn't want to lose this career that I had believed that God had brought to me. Why would God bring me something and not want me to just kind of tolerate everything around me? In that success is really what my mindset was. And, and so when I watched that movie, I remember honestly tearing up many a time due to the realization of the horror that, adults were putting children through, especially. I think that's where it really hit me because a lot of these, when they're like, this 16-year-old transition, like these were the people that I was performing with, was those 16-year-old transitioners and etc. And I remember posting about that on Facebook, and I said, everybody needs to watch this movie. This is a phenomenal movie, or something like that. I think it was just, everybody needs to watch this movie. This is an amazing movie. Go to bed, I wake up, and has absolutely blown up with my theater friends. A lot of people telling me, that I was going to go to hell for what I thought. Some people sent me physical threats. A lot of like directors in the local area, unfriended me, blocked me, and not everyone did. But a lot of people started becoming combative with me purely because I said, go see this movie. It's a great movie. And I think that is the moment that it truly hit for me that you guys can believe whatever you want, but the minute that I tell you I believe in something that you don't want, now I'm your enemy because I'm going against you. It was something where I had tolerated and had been, your guys' BFF for years. I mean, this was just a couple of years ago. So almost 10 years, I had been friends with a lot of these people and known these people and always shown kindness to these people. But because my view goes against your view, now you're going to hate me. And I even had people, my friends of mine, telling me that because I agreed with this movie and liked this movie, it meant that I wanted them dead. I mean, it's like, where I've performed with you, you've slept over at my house, I've slept over at your house. It was insane to me. And then that is honestly where it all began, that I finally decided, you know what? I have kept my mouth shut for years. I have allowed you guys to share what you think. I have allowed you guys to trample on my point of view, and I'm no longer. I'm going to say what I think, and I'm going to say what I believe. And so, and I think part of it was my nature of not being combative, but if you tell me that I can't do something that I want to do or that I believe in, I'm going to go at it 10 times harder. And so for 2 weeks straight, daily, I began to post about what is a woman. And then I honestly started going into my abortion beliefs as well. And that is when a lot of my friends started dropping off. A lot of them, messaging me again, telling me that I deserve to go to hell for thinking that it's okay to that it's okay if a 10-year-old gets raped and they get pregnant, that I believe it's okay for them to carry that baby, that I deserve to go to hell for that belief. And some of them were childhood friends, not even from theater. It was just childhood friends that I had known since I was like 6 years old, neighbors of mine. And so that is where it really began, that I decided that theater was not a place for me anymore. I mean, I had directors blocking me, unfriending me. I had people that I was in shows with constantly, because Des Moines is not a huge place, especially for the theater community. You have a few major theaters, and when you're out of one, you're most likely going to be out of them all. And that's when I realized, like, I've done theater with a lot of Christian people, and it made me truly realize I've never really seen them post about things such as transgenderism or abortion. It's a lot of like, I'll pray for you. It's a lot of, I'm here for you spiritually, or you can come to church with me. But it's never, I don't believe that babies should be murdered in the womb. Or I don't believe that a man can become a woman. And that's when it really clicked, that a lot of these Christian theater friends that I had, that I thought would have my back, that did not comment and help me. You know, that's when I realized that they were too afraid of losing their career and the friends and the environment that they had built up as well. That they had clung onto their earthly status more than their heavenly one, and that I had been doing the same thing. And that when I started standing up for my beliefs and I thought some of these people would come to my rescue, they didn't publicly. I got private messages, but where are you guys in my comment section, standing up to these people and help of me, and not even really in help of me and help of God's truth that he's given to us. And that's when I truly made the decision that I'm going to make my beliefs known, and that, I've sat here and tolerated all of your guys' hate talk towards my beliefs, and I'm not even hating, it's the truth. It's biologically true that when you have an abortion, you are murdering a baby. It is biologically true that you cannot become a woman if you're a dude. And it's like, I have sat here for years and listened to hate and listened to you bash on my Lord, on my beliefs, on the things that I know that are true, and I've never said a word. And the minute that I go, hey, go see this movie, it's pretty good, it's, I mean, a world of hate. I've had to block people. I've had to, mute people. And it's purely because, you guys come with your opinions all you want. That doesn't bother me. It's when you guys are physically threatening me that it's like, okay, we're going to block or take the breaks and stuff like that. And that was hard. It was a hard time because I lost basically all of my friends. These people who I had spent time with, ironically enough, I had visited their churches before. They had visited my churches, and, they just were gone. And I don't talk to them to this day. We've never been able to have conversations, and it's crazy to me because one of my best friends, Lauren, she could not be further from my political views. But we have had amazing discussions over the years. We have had in depth talks about transgenderism and abortion. And, we might not see eye to eye, but we're able to have these honest truths and honest conversations because we care for the other person. And I think that's important, because I don't think that we should stop having these conversations with people, because sometimes planting a seed is all that it takes. And or sometimes it's good for you to have a conversation with someone who doesn't agree with you, because sometimes you might see something that you weren't thinking of originally, or that you weren't considering, from the other person. And you know, it wasn't easy, because all of a sudden, from the age of 14 to what that would have been probably 21 years old, I had done a show every summer, every fall, like 2 or 3 times a year, and now they were gone. And my friends were gone, and I wasn't performing, and I wasn't auditioning. And, I wasn't really accepted anymore, and it honestly made me scared to even go and audition, because I figured I was going to get turned down, or the amount of hate I was getting, it was like it wasn't the environment that I had originally been in. And, you know, there was one time where I tried to go back to the theater community. I had gone to a theater here and helped with a class locally. And, but one of my rules was that I could not speak about my political views. Oh, okay. One of my rules was that I could not speak about my political views. That was my rule. And you know what? I was like, I will abide by that because I'm here to perform and I'm here to help the kids perform. This isn't about me. And this isn't about my political views. I'm going to share the love of Christ. And if somebody asks me, I'm going to be honest, but okay, I will abide by that as long as everyone else abides by it. I will not be the only person here not talking about my views. And I mean, one of the first or second days, already right off the bat, there were a group of girls, just like teachers, bashing on Donald Trump. And I'm sitting there, and the head teacher's not saying a word. But yet I was told that I could not share my views. And the third day, I remember a little girl came in and she wanted to go by he, him pronouns. She wanted to be addressed as a boy, even though the mom had specifically told us, we're not really too comfortable with this. But all the theater people were like, we need to do it because that's how they feel. And I straight up told our head teacher, that's where I draw the line, because now you're asking me to go against my morals. Now you're asking me to go against the things that I believe. It's one thing to be a part of an environment and say, you know what? I'm here to enjoy my environment, or even in a workspace. You know what? I know not everybody thinks the way I think. I'm just here to work, so I'm just going to do my job and lay low. But when it starts to when it starts to look you in the eye and go, you must obey what you do not want to obey, then that's where it crosses the line for me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so the minute there's this little child, this little girl who's been beautifully created by God is going, you know what? He made a mistake and you guys need to call me a boy. I just will not do it. And I never did. And I referred to that little girl as a girl the rest of the day because I just refused to. And that was the last theater thing that I did, was that class, because of the fact that I was like, you know what? If this is how it's going to be, when you're taking away now the love of performing to try to make a grandstand point about your point of view, that was the last thing I did, because I just am not about that. And it's honestly, at the time, it was extremely hard. And now looking back at it, now about where the theater community is now, it was a great decision because of the fact that, I mean, just recently I found out that one of the people that I used to perform with, is planning on going to, demonic worship places. I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm not going to be a part of that. I don't want anything to near that. I just found out that they're doing, now I still get their emails, like audition emails. It'll be like male identifying role, female identifying role. Like, we didn't do that back even just even just like 3 or 4 years ago. We were not doing that in the theater community, at least here in Des Moines, Iowa. We weren't going the male identifying, female identifying. We never did that. We said, here's the dude's role, here's the lady's role. Let's get going. And so it's like, okay, it feels like at the time I was like, God, why are you taking this away from me? You've given me the talent to act. You've given me the talent to sing. You've given me the talent to semi-dance. Why are you now taking this away from me? Everything. And it came down to this, as I was telling myself this in the past. I kept telling myself, everything that I have built for myself, why are you taking away? The career that I have built for myself, why are you taking this away? And the thing to hone in on is, I was telling myself, I have done this for myself. I have done this for myself. Why are you being the bad guy when I am the good guy? And that was the problem, is because God gave me the ability to do those things. God gave me that career. God put me in that place and gave me those opportunities. I did not give that to myself. And so it was a very humbling act. And it was almost like two things. One, God pulled me out before it got horrendous here. And two, he pulled me out to teach me that, he giveth and he taketh away, and he can do so whenever he wants, but he gives and he takes. And that during that time, that is when I found the Bible verse, John 15:18, where Jesus is saying, if the world hates you, know that they hated me first. And I remember reading that for the first time and feeling just an absolute comfort in that because of the fact that I was being hated and I felt alone. And it felt as if nobody will understand. I'm sitting here all alone, and it's easy to throw a pity party. But God literally sent his son, and Jesus died a brutal death on the cross for us. All I was going through was being booted out of my theater community when he was being nailed to a cross. Like, that is the humbling nature of that Bible verse. Is that Jesus is saying, I mean, in Gen Z terms, he's basically saying, sis, if you think this is hard, look what I had to do. If you think they hate you, look at how they treated me. And to read that even now is so humbling. And just to say it out loud, it is the most humbling Bible verse that I have ever come across in my, personal journey. And this episode is going to be a shorter episode than most, but I think what I want you to take away from this is that sometimes God has a plan further than you can imagine your plan. And sometimes you build yourself up on a pedestal, and you need to remember that God is the one who made the pedestal and put you on it, and he can easily take you off of it. And it's important to remember that standing up for your beliefs is so much more important than, the people around you or the materialistic things that you have, because people will always fail you and Christ never will. And that was something that was hard for me because they were my friends, especially being homeschooled, where I didn't have a lot of friends and I had built this community for myself. You know, it was hard for me to just let go of all of my friends and all of these things and my career, etc. But God had this miraculous plan for my life, and my, amazing husband and my beautiful daughter. I never saw either of those things coming a few years ago. And now we're even considering moving, and that could create a space for me to perform again with people who I don't know, and hopefully, fingers crossed, a space where, we can focus on the love of performing. And, that's going to be a really big thing for me. Obviously, if it's God's will and on God's timing, but I just want you guys to know that it is easy to honestly be a coward away from what you truly believe. And it is easy to hold on to the things that you can see, and not in the things that you have to try to believe in. And when you see your friends every day, or when you have amazing skills or amazing talents and you're putting those to use, and now all of a sudden they're being challenged against you, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, no, for sure, and just go along with the group. But that's not what God has called us to do. He has called us, to stand up for his word, and to stand up for him, and to stand in his truth. And honestly, when you do that, he has so much better plans for you than what you can see in that moment. And so I just wanted to make this episode and encourage you guys that standing up for Jesus and for your beliefs and for your political views, it's not easy, and honestly sometimes it does not come with a reward, and sometimes it doesn't come with positivity right away. But just remember John 15:18. If they hate you, they hated me. And relish in the comfort that you are not alone, because Jesus came and died a brutal death for you, and because they hated him for standing up for truth. He died so that you didn't have to. So when you have to go and you have to stand up to your friends, or stand up to your job, or stand up to, theater or wherever, that is absolutely nothing compared to what Jesus did for you and for me and for everybody. And I just wanted to encourage you guys in that. Thank you for listening to episode 4 of Let's Talk. Let's talk about standing up. The next episode, Let's talk about self-harm, will premiere next Monday. I'm going to have one of my closest friends, Jessica, on to discuss her journey with that. Feel free to give me a follow on YouTube, X, Instagram, and now Rumble and Spotify. And, I appreciate you guys, and If you guys have a topic that you want me to cover, please send that into annahibbs23@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram or Twitter, and I'll get to you when I can, because I want to make sure that this podcast isn't just things that I want to talk about, that it's things that you guys or your daughters or your granddaughters want to hear or want to hear from a Christian conservative perspective. Thank you so much for listening.